Hello. Okay, I have a problem. I've taken so many notes, and I've added so many of my notes to my presentation, and I kind of just want to read everybody else's awesome quotes because they're so amazing. So yeah, if I talk for 3 hours, that's your fault because you were so awesome. Okay. So where does this go? Oh, okay. Here we go. I'm opening with this image of Sufjan Stevens because The Age of Odds is an album that I think interrogates the idea of the prophetic artist that Sufjan established in so much of his earlier work, songs like Vito's Ordination Day, Oh God, Where Are You Now? And if you don't know that, run out and listen to them. But on this album, he starts to ask questions about the role of the artist. You know, I think that I'm hearing from God and I'm creating these things that are saying something important to the world or about my life or about you, but maybe I'm insane. Maybe I'm a narcissist. So he's really interrogating and questioning that. I heard this quote just last week when a good friend of mine, who's a Baylor University film professor, spoke at Covenant College. He says, "The artists among us stoke and cultivate our theological imaginations." And it's the artists that really helped, I think, everyone keep their theology living. And so what I'd like you to do, I'm relating that to an interesting piece of art. That's a painting, by the way. But everybody, interactive, take up your phone and see what the painting says. Does anybody know this painting? The name of it is I Wait and I Wait and I Wait for God to Appear. And it's by, maybe you know this person more as an author, Douglas Copeland. He wrote the novel Generation X in 1989 that coined the term for popular usage. But more than that, he would consider himself, his main vocation is visual artist. This painting reflects a longing for the real God to manifest himself, no longer merely an idea, a doctrine, a rhetorical position. Where is God in the intricate, detailed, yet seemingly random pattern of life? And I wait and I wait and I wait for God to appear. This is a 2011 painting. The artist has painted a colorful QR code, defamiliarizing a familiar symbol of daily life. That sounds a lot like something John Mark McMillan said last night, I think. Anyway, another quote. Like most QR codes, if a viewer holds up her camera to the graphic images, a message is decoded via smartphone. A contrast to the hard geometric edges of the painting, the message that magically appears is soft and human. But where is this God? Just as a viewer decodes the QR code's messages with an interpretive tool like a phone, so the artist longs for a tool that will enable a message from God, the God, to appear. And all of this really made me think of something Corey said last night, because here we have this seemingly deceptive, flattened, one-dimensional code reminding us that, quote, art reintroduces complexity to things that have been overly simplified. There's a longing in each human being for the God of life, even behind the most depthless technology. I forgot that I'm not doing the things here, and I'm pressing. Woo. Okay, so I am basing a lot of this. Anybody is a Walter Brueggemann fan? This book, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but that's good. This book, this seminal work from 1978, The Prophetic Imagination. Wow. If you haven't read this, run out, get it. It'll rock your world. Where did I get? That's not written down. Where did I get that? Okay. The prophetic imagination, according to Brueggemann, is twofold. And we've talked about a lot of this already in so many of these excellent talks. Critique and lament, and energizing hope grounded in doxology. on the one hand, Brueggemann sets up, he talks about the empire mentality. And what he means by the empire mentality as the way things are the status quo that is sustained by the power brokers that be. They're the ones who define normal. And so when he's looking at the prophets of the Old Testament, he's talking about the kings. And then the prophets, he's talking about those who have power in Israel and over Israel, and those that kind of seduce others around them into believing this is the good life, this is reality. They define morality. And so, according to his understanding of the prophetic imagination, these four things are subversive threats in the empire: criticism, lament, joy, and amazement. Criticism, for someone, in a sense, all of this, this is anti-gaslighting, right? It's like when everyone around is saying this is what's normal, and you have the person, and in this case, I'm talking about particularly the artist, criticizing it, critiquing, questioning the norm. Often that's done through things like satire, all different forms of art. Lament, the sorrowful reaction, is a kind of freedom to question and mourn the norm. Joy, I like what Victory Boyd said last night. Joy is a warfare strategy. Joy, to show joy even under the most horrific circumstances. And I also love Stephen's words talking about being architects of hope. And that those are subversive, very subversive. Also, the word amazing makes me think of childlike wonder and curiosity. And that the artist, kind of bringing that into the, quote, adult world of empire. We're so focused on efficiency, getting things done, climbing to the top, and what about pausing and being in a sense of amazement and wonder? The first example I have of this is the Magnificat. I didn't put all of it up here, but you can see the two sides. You know what, I didn't explain the second half because it's a little harder to grasp, but when he says critique and lament, that's pretty clear, but energizing hope grounded in doxology. I'm going to show you examples. This kind of reminds me of what Vesper's talking about being in the borderlands. I'm going to show you examples that have the first part down, but you end up in despair. Pascal talks about that. He talks about how if you have a critique without a sense of God, you end up in despair. And so critique and lament without any underlying hope is despairing. So the fullness of the prophetic, according to Brueggemann, is an energizing hope. He talks about freedom and newness, but this must be grounded in doxology. It must be grounded in a truth, and it's interesting that the truth that the biblical truth that he's saying is grounded in is itself a song, a work of art, a piece of artistic rhetoric. So back to the Magnificat. We have hope. My soul glorifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. We have amazement and wonder at God. Line 51, he has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. And we have critique, prophetic critique that just slices through like a knife. He's brought down rulers from their thrones. He has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. And I love this drawing related to that. So art provides a means to resist the status quo and the empire mentality, leading to critique and lament. This is a very helpful quote from Brueggemann. Only in the empire are we pressed and urged and invited to pretend that things are all right. I don't know about you, but I feel like, and especially maybe the past 6 or 7 years, I've been in many circumstances where I think, am I crazy? I don't understand. I have this, quote, alternative vision or hope, but it doesn't match up with the way reality is being defined around me. So Brueggemann says, only in the empire are we pressed and urged and invited to pretend that things are all right, either in the dean's office or in our marriage or in the hospital room. And as long as the empire can keep the pretense alive that things are all right, there will be no real grieving and no serious criticism. So again, prophetic art is anti-gaslighting. Prophetic art is anti-gaslighting. And I keep thinking, and Brueggemann talks about this, Jeremiah 6:14, they have healed the wound of my people, saying peace, peace, when there is no peace. And isn't this part of the artist's role to say, hey, wait a minute, no, this is not okay. This is not okay. Bring in a little Michel Foucault. Many of these are not Christian artists or thinkers. I mean, Brueggemann is a theologian. But Foucault talks about how we are constantly presented with an idea of normality and we are judged. The judges of normality are present everywhere. We are in the society of the teacher judge, the doctor judge, the educator judge, the social worker judge. It is on them that the universal reign of the normative is based. And a work of art that I think deals with this quite a bit is The Handmaid's Tale, both the novel, Margaret Atwood, both the novel and the series. And there's a really chilling quote that when things are normalized around us and we don't have prophetic voices to say, hey, something's wrong here, then nothing changes instantaneously. In a gradually heating bathtub, you'll be boiled to death before you know it. So we need artists to tell us the truth. And like all good prophets, you'll be strange. Love this O'Connor quote. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you odd. And I liked Corey Frey's question last night. Is this stuff that you are making as strange as you are? Brueggemann says the task of prophetic ministry is to nurture, nourish, and evoke a consciousness and perception alternative to the consciousness and perception of the dominant culture around us. And the second quote, I know I'm very quote heavy, I'm sorry, a geeky professor, okay? I was excited about the smoke because I have never been in a circumstance where I had smoke billing, but it's not here today. Okay, so he says, imagination is a danger, thus every totalitarian regime is frightened of the artist. Vesper, you've written a lot about that, I know. It is a vocation of the prophet to keep alive the ministry of imagination. I love that, the ministry of imagination, to keep on conjuring and proposing alternative futures to the single one the king wants to urge as the unthinkable one. I know, clap for Walter, clap for Walter. Don't clap for Nietzsche. Well, kind of, maybe. I teach a lot of Nietzsche and Marx, and Meryl Westphal talks about, reading Nietzsche, Marx, and Freud for Lent, and how this, reading, they keep us on our toes because they ask good question and truth and lies in a non-moral sense. Nietzsche talks about the natural tendency of human beings keeping up appearances, living in borrowed finery, wearing masks, the drapery of convention, play acting for the benefit of others and oneself. And I'm like, yeah, that is the way we are. They are deeply immersed in illusions and dream images. Their eyes merely glide across the surface of things and see forms. Nowhere does their perception lead to truth. This is very confusing in the canon of Nietzsche's work because he doesn't believe in truth. So he believes in individual perspective. So I don't really understand how you can distinguish between appearance and reality, but that's a whole nother discussion. The point is, I think he's bringing up some important stuff, and he thinks the Christian is the worst at this, and he says the Christian blinks in his soul. The Christian doesn't want to admit that his natural instinct is just survival of the fittest and self-centeredness, and so they blink in their soul. And Nietzsche, of course, thinks those things are good, that we need to acknowledge that. And Marx says, in his critique of religion, I have a lot of compassion and empathy for Marx, because Marx was a person who saw a lot of suffering done in the name of religion, and not a lot of individuals that were disempowered and oppressed under the name of, quote, Christianity. And so he says the abolition of religion is as the illusory happiness of the people is the demand for the real happiness. To call on them to give up their illusions about their condition is to call on them to give up to a condition that requires illusion. And so I'm arguing that, as Brueggemann says, yes, we need to give up our illusions. Yes, and I think the kind of Christianity he's talking about in his writing is a very false cultural Christianity that does need to be deconstructed and thrown away. But who's going to present us with the alternate reality? And Brueggemann, is talking about the different sorts of prophetic voices, and I'm arguing that artists, I think, really have a big role there. Just a couple of examples, because I'm running out of time. I knew I wouldn't get everything. From William Blake, who, if you know anything about William Blake, he's kind of, as one of my friends says, out there flapping. He's a little, but he's an incredible artist, painter, poet, but he does not, was not a believer. He had sort of his own religion, but he saw, these are children in the 19th century who were chimney sweepers, dying very young, a black young, oppressed, suffering, and the church was completely endorsing it, either turning silent or endorsing it. And these children have internalized this idea of God. There's a line here of a little boy's dream. The angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. So there's a real sadness. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm, so if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. And he goes on. This is from the Songs of Innocence and Experience. The point is, this is a non-Christian artist who has that prophetic edge, is critiquing the church and saying, you are, well, this line is just, yikes. This is a child. Because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and gone to praise God and priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. True criticism leads to dismantling. And I wanted to really acknowledge, as Justin was talking about, the African American resistance movement, and this image is kind of referring to one of the best examples I can think of that is a real prophetic art that is holding together. Well, Frederick Douglass talks about how the African American spirituals, or what Luke Powery calls the unknown black bards. Frederick Douglass says that they were reverberating in the wilderness, full of the highest joy and the deepest sadness. So they're holding together lament that is subversive and critiquing the false empire reality of their situation, but there's so much joy there, and there's a sense of even childlike amazement and wonder. And so that history of black resistance is such an amazing example, and all the art that comes from that. But this is another excellent quote from Brueggemann that relates specifically to the arts. He says, "It is only a poem, and we might say rightly that singing a song does not change reality. However, we must not say that with too much conviction. The evocation of an alternative reality consists at least in part in the battle for language and the legitimization of a new rhetoric. The language of the empire is surely the language of managed reality, of production and schedule and market, but that language will never permit or cause freedom because there's no newness to it. Doxology is the ultimate challenge to the language of managed reality, and it alone is the universe of discourse in which energy is possible." I have a couple of examples here, but I'm going to have to just kind of skip over them. But this one, again, these are artists, and they might be kind of borderline artists, because these are artists that never really get to the heart of what's the alternative, but they have really good critiques. This incredible, hilarious blanket called Corporate Safety Blanket, looks like a Madonna figure. Really, and Brueggemann talks about how the contemporary American church is so largely enculturated to the American ethos of consumerism that it has little power to believe or act. And I'm thinking about this kind of religious figure here, but their security is this cloak with these, corporate ads. The song "Fake Empire" by National is great. I'm not going to go into it, but you could look that up if you want. The Zone of Interest, I think the best movie of the year, that's about the normalization of a life of doubling, where on one hand you're a ruthless killer. This is about the Holocaust, and on the other hand you have happy families, and this division and doubling. And this is Damien Hirst. He does a lot of art about the religion of dependence on medicine, which is very, very interesting. Have some examples of lament here. Guernica, John Henry's Pieta photos. But I'm just going to end on this. Again, back to that idea that art can invoke an alternative reality. And I want to say, even just a beautiful work of art can be subversive, because it is shot full of truth that is a challenge to the deadened and kind of corporate and falsely unified and plastic understanding of reality that we're often surrounded by. And Stephen's questions about beauty, why is there beauty, the mystery of beauty, it makes me think this is a scene, a shot from the Tree of Life, which again, go run out and watch it if you've never seen that. But Roy Anker said about this, that it's a film about the mystery of suffering and asking questions about the mystery of suffering, but we can't answer the questions of the mystery of suffering. We can acknowledge them, we can bring them up, we can lament, we can cry out, but he says that the film does respond to the mystery of suffering with the mystery of beauty, which I thought really, really powerful. I think I'm going to end there. I had some slides. I'll just put it out there. If you're curious, I'm going through a few of parts from T.S. Eliot's poems to show his transformative journey to faith, from the kind of borderland/wasteland to, T.S. Eliot in his life, when he wrote The Wasteland, thought God is dead, and so we are in this wasteland. Complete spiritual dryness. There is no water to be had, and if we even got water, it would drown us. It wouldn't sustain us. Then, when he became a Christian and wrote the 4 quartets, he realized that he was wrong, and that, yes, we're living in the wasteland, but it's not because God doesn't exist. It's because he exists and we've ignored him. And so again, I'm encouraging all of you artists to stand up, to be weird, to proclaim the truth, to hold together, lament, critique, and joy. And remember, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you odd. And that's a good thing. Thank you.